Zero. All right.
So that's it.
We are live. Thank you very much. Angelina Lesnikova and Friederike Kleinfercher. Can you put us on the stage, please? Carolina Menchaca, Bharat Harbham, and Vitor Ribeiro for doing this panel of DeSci the World with us. We are live from Rio de Janeiro and during the Blockchain Festival. Thanks a lot. Angelina, the word is yours. You're moderating today. Thank you very much for taking this role. I am thrilled to have you guys here. Thanks a lot for taking the time and discussing your projects and initiatives. This panel will be 40 minutes, so feel free to show to the world the public goods that we are building. Thanks a lot. See you soon. Bye.
Thank you very much, Maria. And just to double check, because I got information that the panel was supposed to be 50 minutes. So is it 40 minutes instead?
Sorry, Angelina. Yeah, I just heard that it's going to be 40 minutes.
40 minutes. Okay, no problem. Just, to be aware of the timing.
Okay,
thank you. Thank you for the presentation, Maria, and thank you for inviting me. And just a little bit about my background. I come from neuroscience, and during my PhD, I realized how poor the research practices in academia, unfortunately, are. And that's why I kind of left it, because I realized that I will do much more public good, changing the whole infrastructure, how research works. And so I went to work on open science and fair data tools. And currently I'm working on a project called DeSci, like scientist to scientist. And what we're trying to do is we try to improve research data sharing and search. And essentially we're building a search engine for data sets. So it's a bit like Google, but tailored specifically for research information. And it's my great joy today to talk to you guys, Carolina, Friederike, Bharat, and Vitor. Thank you so much for joining me today. And to our viewers, to our listeners, today we're going to talk a little bit about DeSci, how it is connected with the traditional science, which value it's trying to bring, what are the changes that it's trying to make. And of course, I'm very curious to hear about your projects, about your motivations, why you've chosen the DeSci path. And maybe we could start with everybody giving a short presentation about themselves, 1 to 2 minutes, and about the project. Carolina, would you like to go first?
Okay, thank you, Angelina. Thank you for the invitation, Maria, and I'm very happy to meet you all. Well, my name is Carolina Menchaca. I am a biologist from Uruguay, and I work at DeSci World, which is a project that is focused on information aggregation, and we like to call it like the social half of DeSci. We always want to go to find the new projects and try to bring up them into a stage and make connections between people and facilitate the collaborations. So we are trying to be in the center of DeSci because as we are in Web3, community is very important. And we are trying to push a youth movement to try to change things and to improve, right? The problems that we have in TradSci. So that's been our main focus in the past 1.5 years. I myself work as a biologist in an NGO here in Uruguay. We are our main line of investigation is the ecology and behavior of coastal borealis dolphin that is endangered. And I came into DeSci just while we're trying to engage in new ways of funding our research. We are in an independent research group, so for us it's very difficult to get new funding and to have like a money flow which is consistent during time. So our project always have it's intermittent in time during this kind of problems to fund our research, which is something that we share with along the rest of the scientific community. So I discovered DeSci, and I ended up working in DeSci World.
Wow, thank you so much. Actually, Carolina, I have known Carolina for quite a while because Carolina has been such an active member in the DeSci space, and also like really serving the community, helping with organizing DeSci rounds on Gitcoin and so on, and also actively promoting diversity and inclusion here. But I never learned about your background, like how you ended up being in DeSci. So just a quick question. I'm wondering, like, did you manage to somewhat improve the situation with the funding for your research group using DeSci methods?
Yeah, actually, we were in a Gitcoin round, and we managed to fundraise a decent amount of money for our research, and we are about to launch an NFT collection. We're doing it with our own scientific data using photographs of dorsal fins. And I myself specialize in bioacoustics, and I studied for my master's degree the bottlenose dolphin whistles. So the idea is to have this NFT collection for us using photographs and audio that we recorded here in Uruguay. So we are trying to, and we proved it was like an objective to myself to prove that we can do that, and we are doing it. So I'm very excited about it.
Awesome. Well, that's very interesting, and I hope we'll still have time a bit later to talk more about your research about dolphins. But anyway, let's move on with it. Let's hear a little bit more about our other speakers. Friederike, would you like to take the next turn?
Of course. So everyone loves dolphins. So probably we come to that later again.
Totally.
Yes. So I'm Friederike Kleinfercher. So thanks for the invitation. I work for the Max Planck Society for nearly 15 years now, and I'm a computing scientist. So I don't do like actual research, but I do large-scale software projects for the Max Planck Society. And in that term, I initiated the Bloxberg Blockchain for Science in 2018. So this was, at least in Europe or Germany, no one was talking about DeSci at that time. So I was more like into the blockchain technology and how we can help our researchers to use this technology. And for me, DeSci means like connecting scientists, connecting research all over the world via decentralized technology. And in our case, it's a blockchain. And I think it's perfect because the world comes together. So we're doing research projects since decades, but we don't really think about funding activities, doing organizations, doing technology in the scientific world. And so this means DeSci for me. And so the Bloxberg blockchain is, DeSci by design, because we have like research organizations now from 55 countries. We have Brazil as well, and they all govern and own this blockchain, which is then home for all the different blockchain applications the scientific world may develop in future or already have.
Awesome, fantastic. I somewhat have a feeling that actually Germany was one of the pioneers in the DeSci space, because before DeSci actually, received its name, because I remember the Blockchain for Science conference was in 2017 or 18. Perhaps you were one of their organizers, I assume. So yeah, back in those times. So like really, how can I say? Like the people who were at the roots at the right at the beginning. So that's that's an honor to talk to you. And I just actually have a question. Like, what is the focus of Bloxberg? Is it like, could you maybe tell a little bit more about how you utilize blockchain for science in this respect? Because I know that currently many people focus on different things, on publishing, on funding. So do you have any focus, or like, what's your mission?
The mission of Bloxberg is to provide like the basic infrastructure for applications like publishing, research data sharing, science, NFTs, everything like this. Because when you say you trust the network, you trust the technology, so which is like the dogma of blockchain, then you have to be really sure what technology do you use and which network do you trust. And we think that science trusts like a network which is governed by scientists and not by companies or by random people where a lot of money is involved. So the idea is to have really a democratic way to provide a basic infrastructure, and then all different kinds of applications can be built on top of it. And here at Max Planck Society, for example, we have a very basic use case, and this is the IP protection of research data. So researchers at Max Planck Society can certify their data in a very early state over the Blocksberg blockchain, and then they are all a lot more willing to also share their data, because they can claim, okay, I did this and that experience at that time, and then they are willing to share that because they are not afraid of being scooped in future.
Oh, wow, that's fantastic. Actually, that was one of the main reasons why I got interested in the DeSci space and in blockchain applications for science specifically, because one of the problems that I think currently academia faces is exactly about data sharing, because people are trying to hold the data for themselves for years, and then like finding the ways to actually liberate people from their fears and finding the ways to actually provide ownership. I think it's a very important task that you're solving. Well, I hope we also talk about that a little bit in more detail, but let's just also continue with Bharat. Could you maybe also tell us a little bit more about you and the project?
Sure. Well, thank you for having me, firstly. Thank you, Maria, for organizing this. Tell you about myself. So I used to be a doctor. I kind of graduated maybe, I think, 6 years ago. I quit about 3-4 years ago. Variety of kind of issues with the system. Overall, I just didn't feel effective as a human being with how I worked and what I was contributing to the world. I spent a little bit, tried academia, so I did a master's in research, worked in clinical trials. And again, I did not want to go into clinical research. And really, at that time, one of the strongest things pushing me away from doing a PhD was, spending 4 years working on something, getting almost no money for it, and not getting any IP ownership in the thing I worked on. It just didn't make any sense to me. And I would look at other people that were doing this and just think, like, why? You're crazy. Like, why would you do this? So that pushed me away from academia. And the other kind of thing was, the success of your project, whether you get published, is going to be dependent on what kind of funding you can get. And if you work, if your degree's from a good university, if you work with a good professor, you probably get funding. But if you're, not good university, not good degree, it was going to be a very difficult race to try to get funding when the other people are going to be able to get more effectively than you. So, those things pushed me away from the field, and I, spent kind of a few years working a variety of startups, some of them mine, some of the ones that I joined. And then I got quite into Web3. I liked a lot of the ideology about ownership and how, this new world, when you're involved, whether it's in a company, whether it's, other digital assets, that you actually have ownership and, the implications on what that can have for a community as we go forward and what native Web3 communities can achieve. So I spent a little while working in a digital fashion, so a million miles away from kind of my normal day job. I don't know, maybe I was going a bit crazy. And then I heard about DeSci initially, I think in February 2022 at ETH Denver, which I caught via the live stream. And I immediately knew, okay, this is what I want to do. I, rang my co-founder that day for this fashion project. I said, I'm out. Like, finally, blockchain for science, which, I had my eye on blockchain for science since 2017, 2018, but nothing was happening. It was very much ideas, and it was only kind of once some of this DAO tooling got available that was very easy to spin up a DAO and get things started. So I literally on the spot quit, realized I wanted to do something in DeSci. And so I'm based in London. So first thing I thought was, I've learned this. There's probably loads of other scientists that don't know anything about this. So let me get the word out. So I started DeSci London. I think you can maybe see the logo on my t-shirt. We do monthly meetups, and the goal is just education and awareness. We bring scientists, talk to them about their various pain points and say, you know, there might be a solution to that. So I've been doing that since last July, so almost like a year and a half. And I also work for Fleming Protocol, which does decentralized clinical trials on the blockchain using a citizen science approach. So that's something super interesting, and maybe we can talk about that a bit later. That's me for now.
Okay, thank you so much, Bharat. And then Vitor, please, could you tell us also about your project and a little bit about your motivation?
Yes, so first of all, thank you for inviting me here today. My name is Vitor. I'm a Web3 enthusiast. I have a master's degree in electronics and computer engineering, and I'm co-founder of Publed, where I work mainly on the technical side of the project since I am a full stack developer. So I have been on the Web3 space for more than 3 years and DeSci for about 1 year. And basically, when we decided to develop our project in the scientific publishing area. And it's always a pleasure to talk about DeSci movement and to try to contribute a little bit more to this space. I can talk about Publed, and Publed is basically a decentralized scientific publishing platform that aims to address the challenge of TradSci. Basically by empowering researchers, liberating them from traditional gatekeepers, protecting their ownership and enabling the monetization of their work, basically in line with what Bharat had said before.
Nice. So it seems to be like the question of ownership and also kind of ownership and in a way agency of one's research outputs seems to be one of the kind of cornerstones problems that DeSci is trying to tackle. So actually, I would be curious to hear a little bit more, Vitor, from you. How does it work in Publed, for instance? How do you solve this issue? And maybe if you could tell a little bit more about the technology behind that.
Yeah, okay. So regarding the ownership and the copyrights, we basically solve the problem of the ownership and copyrights over the scientific work by encapsulating and packaging all the artifacts of research, including not only the paper or the article, but also data sets, code, figures, presentation, whatever. And basically we encapsulate it in an NFT that we call a multimodal research object. And basically by tokenizing these scientific artifacts together, we can securely establish the provenance and the copyrights for each author, allowing them to keep or to maintain the control over their creation and to receive the proper recognition. So we are leveraging NFTs for this. And also, in addition to ownership, this multimodal research object, this NFT, allows to basically trace all the scientific records of a research project, which, as you probably know, typically is scattered across different platforms, such as YouTube, GitHub, Dropbox, whatever. And since it is a tedious process to basically trace this entire record, most of the time, the truth is that these artifacts remain underused and wasted, basically.
Mm-hmm. Cool, interesting. Friederike, I have a question to you because what I understand is that your project is also somewhat related to what Vitor is doing. Could you maybe a little bit tell us about your approach and whether it's different, whether it's going in the same direction? Because I'm like really genuinely interested in understanding like how this all can work together, or something about in this direction.
I think it's based on the same idea. So probably when I got it right, our approach is that we get into certifying research data a little bit earlier. So the idea we had is that the researchers certify their data when they create it. So it's not because they don't know yet, will we publish it or will the experiment be successful? and they don't care. So they have the opportunity to just certify everything they create. And we have like a Dropbox system at the Max Planck Society where they can certify all data on Bloxburg, not knowing yet if they will need it in future. But then they can feel much safer, because they can show, okay, this experiment was done at that time, and this data set looked like that at that time before they share it to others. And what we also have is like services where we can have like a proof of execution. So not only that this data existed as a specific time, but also that an experiment was done in a specific way at that time. So it's like having an input, having an algorithm, having an output, and this is all certified via Bloxburg. So you have like single data sets, and you have whole experiments where you can just show that this was done and that you were the owner of this data. So, and then I think like research data marketplaces, probably like Publed, they are on the next level where we say, okay, what can we do with this data set? Probably they want to publish it. Probably they want to share it. Probably they want to sell their research data. And I think that's like the next step in the system.
Wow, incredible. I think it's very, very important what you're actually doing, and that you already, verifying the data at the very first level, because this is, I think, something that's going to come into play a little bit probably later during the history, but nowadays with the possibility, to just to actually just to synthetically create any kind of data, I think it's going to be very important to actually provide proof that something has actually been done by a specific person.
This is very interesting. So for Bloxburg, the ChatGPT at the beginning of year, this was a hype for us, because a lot of publishers, they called us and said, okay, we have now a problem. So we get a lot of publications sent to us, and we don't know, was this research really done? Is this a real author? Did he do really the experiment, or was this just an AI creating it? And when you, as a researcher, certify your data, when you create it, you can say that, okay, this was a work over 2 years, and this was like a process, and the outcome is the publication.
Oh, wow. Awesome. It sounds like a great opportunity in this, in this respect, to get more adoption, because this is something that I was going to ask you next. How about like the widespread adoption? Because for people who are involved in DeSci, everything looks so close and so cool, but then for people in outside the loop, it seems very, very kind of foreign. And have you what was your journey with a more general acceptance in the more traditional academic circles, like how, and also how do they see kind of it fitting into the more traditional system that's everybody is now trying to change? Yes, so kind of the population opinion is that yes, the impact factor based ranking system has been letting us down, but we don't really have a great alternative now. So what was your experience? Have you received kind of recognition, or did people express hostility towards that, or what's your feeling?
So I think there's still a way to go, of course. So we all know that. So we at Max Planck Society, we did it that way, that we integrated the blockchain technology in already existing applications with the researchers already use, So for them, it's not a big step, and they don't really have to get the whole technology of blockchain. They don't have to handle wallets. They don't need like cryptos to do their transactions. So you have to put this all away from them and make it as simple as possible, and then they will use it. But I see, on the other hand, really people coming not from the province side, but really from the, the thinking of open science, DeSci. So it's not only about solving one problem, it's a change of mindset in the scientific community. And they are, I think, like people we are now here talking in this round, they see not only the technical possibility, but also what we can change in the whole system. And I think that we can build up like systems additional to the traditional systems, not that we want to substitute everything, but we can have like the system combined like DAOs, where it's very democratic, and it's we have different ways of funding additional to the traditional academic systems.
Yeah, totally. I think this kind of step-by-step integration would be a very important kind of consideration in terms of DeSci winning the hearts. Just because my feeling was that whenever like more established scientists hear about reforms, they also perceive it in a way as a threat to the hierarchy because they have been doing science one way, and now when this way is criticized and when people say that we have to do something differently, of course these people feel a little bit uncomfortable thinking about like whether or whatever they have achieved so far is going to be just devalued. And yeah, I think it's a very, very important problem how to actually integrate this new system into the old system, like probably bringing the the legacy, but kind of trying to keep the best part. But well, thank you. I have one question to Carolina now that because probably Carolina was one of the people who have been really very actively involved in different parts. At least I have been, every now and then I have seen Carolina taking parts here and there in this project and so on. So Carolina, I would like to ask you, like, what is your feeling about the whole space? How do you think, what are maybe the best practices and what are the challenges that the community is experiencing? What's your perspective?
Okay, so as you said, I think maybe one of the most important is we are people that come from trans side, so it's very natural and humane that we bring all our bags with them, right? And one of that it's related to DEI, is related to have more women in leadership positions. We still have most DeSci projects are led by men. So we need to be actively thinking about it and talking about it if we want to have a more diverse community, right? And to break all this old vicious system that we bring from trans side, and also about trying to expand the DeSci community in Latin America and in Africa and in other parts that are not Europe and the US. And then we will have a more diverse community, and we will be able to strengthen our science, right? As Bharat was saying, like we have funding issues, but for example, in Latin America, the funding issues, and in Africa also, are kind of different, maybe more profound than in US and in Europe, and that may explain the differences between the science that is made. For example, here, most science is funded by the governments, right? Which is, in one hand, so governments don't invest a lot in science and technology, and when they do, they usually invest in things that they care of, that they want people to research on. So the research lines are very biased towards these kind of things, because if you want to perform a research as a PhD student or for your master's and go for a grant, and if the research line that you are focusing is not of interest of the government, you won't get funded, for example. So that bias is the kind of science that is done here, and we want to break that out, right? So by talking about this kind of different, and another stuff is that as the science here is mostly financed by the government, we do mostly basic science, not such as experimental or applied science that is done in the US and Europe. So if we try to expand this side, we may bring all these different scientific disciplines, and we may try to help this kind of science being done in Latin America also, and also in Africa. So I think that we have this challenge to break, right, to overcome. And it's linked also to what we were discussing about data sharing, right? Because it's like an evil system. Nobody wants to share data that is very hard to get, right? I don't want to share what I fought a lot to obtain. So we try to, it's like try to beat the beast in different angles. So that's why I'm very excited about it, and I think that we're in the good road of trying to leverage open science using blockchain.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for your input, Carolina. I very much agree to most of the things that you have said. And actually, talking about the research that is only interesting, like for instance, for the government, or like the funding the research, only the research that's interesting for the government. I have a question to Bharat, and because I know that Fleming protocol actually kind of also stems from the same idea that it's at least to my understanding, it's trying to deliver kind of value to people who have their interest invested in the research, right? And as far as I understand, Fleming protocol really kind of focuses on the patients and their needs. And maybe could you tell us a little bit more about the whole idea and how it is being implemented?
Sure. So I'll tell you something, a story when I was doing my master's. I think this was about 7 or 8 years ago. And from then on, I've always had this idea in mind that the way the research system currently works is insufficient. And I was lucky enough to find a Fleming team to work on this exact idea. So I did my master's on chronic fatigue syndrome. So this was a disease that, there's reasonable evidence now that it's a physiological disease, but at that time, a lot of people thought it was a psychiatric disease. So this is, a research population that doesn't have many options for clinical trials because no one's really interested in doing research. There's no funding, but it's probably one of the most common rare diseases that exist. There's a lot of people that have this. So there's it's hard to get access to a clinical trial. And when I was doing my master's on it, getting the ethical approval itself took about 1 year. And at that time, we were studying whether there's a leaky gut. So all we needed from the patients was a sample of their stool. And it took 1 year to get the ethical approval. And that made me think this entire system is completely nonsense. You had a patient population that were desperate to be researched, happy to give us their stool sample, but you still needed to go through the approval process to make sure we weren't doing something secret with the stool without, I don't know. And what was very interesting was when I went to one of the conferences, I found a patient that had chronic fatigue syndrome, and they and a few of their kind of community that also had chronic fatigue syndrome were doing clinical trials on themselves, like just in secret in their house. And at that time, they were doing a DIY fecal biota transplant. So if you know what that is, that if you don't, I don't really want to explain it to you. But it's showing how desperate they were if they were literally doing their own fecal biota transplant. And I remember thinking at that time that it kind of makes sense. Like if I had a disease, there was no cure, I would be willing to try whatever to do it on myself. And B, I was aware of maybe 10, 15 people doing this kind of a fecal biota transplant experiment on chronic fatigue syndrome. Would it not have been good for that data to be open? So at least, if it did work, people know. If it didn't work, then other people know not to try it. If some patients came to harm, then someone else might, thinking of doing it a year later might be like, okay, maybe I shouldn't do it because this person got a side effect and had to go to hospital. So, always made me realize that the power in the individual and to do something via the citizen science approach could do some really interesting things. And so Fleming protocol are, it at least initially focused on doing something like this. We're not doing something as extreme as some of these self-experimentations which could harm the patient, because a fecal biota transplant is very dangerous because they were doing it from the top end. So if you put the tube in your lungs, you could potentially die if you inject it into the lung. So that's way too risky for anything we're interested in. So our focus is looking at doing clinical trials on things that are readily available over the counter. So things you can buy from Amazon. And these things generally can't be patented, so there's not much of a monetization interest behind it, things that are naturally occurring. And so, to give more of a concrete example, let's say you wanted to, I don't know, you have a theory that green tea might cure type 2 diabetes. To do this by the traditional route, it would probably cost you 1 or 2 million, maybe 1 year of waiting for the ethical approval. And big pharma aren't going to spend this much money to find green tea works, and they can't patent green tea. And if they find that it works, then it's going to stop their drug sales of metformin and a few other things. But 1,000 people with type 2 diabetes could buy green tea off Amazon for £5, try it for a month, log the results in an app. Now you've done a decentralized clinical trial at scale for pennies of the cost. The users would own their data, so it's not like they're losing control over it. And maybe they can collectively decide, do we want to open this data? Do we want to try sell it to this data? Maybe we open it and the only thing we get is an NFT for the bragging rights to prove we took part in this. So I think that's the kind of area that we're hoping to scan, these kind of naturally occurring alternative medicine, over-the-counter. A lot of claims are being made, but they're not tested. Most likely 99% of all these things don't work, don't do anything, but there are likely to be a few things that probably do work. And we're hoping that, we can do like a very quick, scalable way of just like a scattergun approach to try surface a signal. And then once something works, maybe that can go down the formal route of a clinical trial via a proper institution.
Well, thank you so much. Yes, I think it's a very valuable project, and I really hope that it's gonna, bring hope to many people who kind of face these barriers established by the current system. And since I think we're running out of time, unfortunately, we're a little bit shorter than we all expected. I have one question that I really would like to ask all of you, and hopefully also receive at least a little bit of feedback. Something that I also think a lot about is I think that one of the impacts that DeSci can create is actually implementing ways how to make scientists collaborate, work together rather than compete against each other. And I think this is what DeSci thing has been trying a little bit to kind of think about. But what are your thoughts on that? Do you think we have made any progress? Do you maybe have any ideas how to actually do that? I think it would be great to hear from all of you, like a couple of words, if you have something to say about that. Vitor, maybe would you like to go first?
Yeah, okay. I think I will also use some of the points that Carolina raised regarding the DeSci community and some problems. And I won't call it a problem, but I will call it a suggestion for improvement or an advice for all the DeSci community and projects. And basically, my advice is for all the DeSci projects to be more connected, to share ideas, to share users, events, initiatives, whatever, and more than just being on the ultra-rare bio landscape, we really need to be together and we work together. Because we can't expect to compete or to solve problems in TradSci when ourselves are competing with each other in our own niche, and also a special shout out to Maria, who basically, despite working on a similar field to us, wanted to exchange ideas, to inviting me here for these events. And I think this is what you need to grow and to build a better future for science, for DeSci. And I think the question about the future of science or the future of DeSci is a question that applies across various domains and technologies. Talking about Web3, just as I don't believe crypto or DeFi or whatever will replace the traditional system, the traditional financial system, I believe that they will coexist. So my vision is the same for the future of science. I can also say that maybe in the near future, we will see TradSci coexisting with DeSci, with basically traditional companies and entities collaborating and leveraging DeSci products. I think it will be nice, a future like this.
Awesome. Thank you, Vitor. Friederike, what do you think?
So I think we achieved a lot. So I'm in the blockchain space for quite a while now. And I think in the last 6-8 months, I hear about DeSci a lot, and I met so many people. I met so much nice initiatives, and I think the best thing was that there is now a term, so people can find each other. So it was very important to find the term DeSci, and now we have conferences all over the world. We have talks, we have applications who specialize on DeSci, and I think this is a lot which happened in the last 6 months. And I think the most important thing we all can do is just spread the word, talk to people about it, tell everyone about DeSci, and so that blockchain is not only DeFi, so it's also DeSci, and this will be, as you said, Vitor, so it will be coexist to the traditional system, and I'm really confident that it will grow much further in the next months and years.
Thank you very much, Friederike, for input, and especially for your perspective from many, quite a few years ago at least, being in the space. And Carolina, what do you think?
Well, yes, I think that we will come to a moment where we will have more benefits of collaborating rather than competing between each other, right? Where collaboration it's better rather than compete. And I think that we are discovering that is possible because we can share data using secure ways to share it. We can have benefits because we share it. We can for example, lower cost of our experiments because we can, decentralize the experiment and by using another lab with in another country, but in a secure way. We can motivate replication studies, which is something that we have a crisis in science, and it's like getting our advances, slowing the advances, because we can replicate studies because we don't get published. Now we will do, and by collaborating in different research groups, we can speed up the advances of science because we will be working together and not doing like different stuff around the world and not that don't know what somebody else is doing, because we are always like try to hide our results and our data to prevent that somebody steal us. So I think that if we start talking about that and spreading the word, as Frederick said, we will come to a moment when DeSci will expand like naturally. So I'm very happy to see that coming and eventually. And not only for scientists itself, but the whole world. As Bharat was talking about the importance of DeSci for the people themselves, I see that it's very powerful that people can participate directly in the scientific process, right? Even if you have a rare disease, I cannot imagine somebody come to a university and say, I want my disease to be researched on, and I have this dollar to fund this research. But now using the Web3 stack and participating for a DAO, for example, that focuses in this particular research, then people can take direct actions towards fund the science they want to be funded. So in this whole process, we are already trying to convert science into a public good, right? So that's I think something that I want to highlight.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Carolina. And Bharat, what about you? What's your opinion on the topic?
Angelina, can you hear me?
Yes. Shall we wrap up?
Yeah, I just had they call my attention that our time's up.
Okay. Well, sorry, Bharat, but
No worries.
I hope we'll have another chance to talk about that. And yes, thank you very much, Maria, for organizing this session. It was really a lovely opportunity to meet the people in the DeSci space and to talk more about DeSci. And yes, we have to wrap up. Thanks again, Carolina, Vitor, Bharat, and Friederike for this wonderful conversation. I still myself have quite a bunch of questions to all of you, so I will probably just text you.
And yeah, if they let us, we will talk the whole day here. I want to thank you, Angelina, for your wonderful moderation, and Vitor, Bharat, Friederike, Carolina, for taking the time and joining us. My objective when I request you and invite you to be part of this panel was to show to this audience here that science has the same challenges worldwide, and we have to tackle those issues and to show to people here that the DeSci movement is on and is strong, and to show that Vitor today he's joining from Portugal, and Bharat from London, England, Angelina and Friederike from Germany, and Carol from Uruguay. I have already met Carolina presentially here in Rio de Janeiro, but you know, for the rest of you, I feel like you're my colleagues from a long time ago, you know, and so I want to thank you for your presence, and also thank DeSci World for the financial support for this panel today. Thank you, Caro. I know, you know, you always supporting us in whatever we do, and this is open to all of us. DeSci World is a very active movement in an association, a community that we must join. Thank you, Caro, for your support, and thank you, everybody, and thank you, the audience that is here today joining this wonderful panel. Thanks again.
Thank you so much, Maria.
Take care.
Thank you.
Have a good rest of the
Take care.
conference.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. See you soon.
Bye.